My parents ejected me Christmas Day empty-handed. Refusing any possession, they said you're incapable of doing anything alone. Desperate, I sought the bank to use the ancient card my grandfather left. The bank manager went ashen and murmured, "Ma'am, sit down. You absolutely must see this." I was stunned by what then appeared on the screen. Can you imagine being thrown out by your own family on Christmas Eve, barefoot in the snow, with nothing but a trash bag full of junk? What if, in that moment, you stumbled upon a secret that would shatter everything you thought you knew about your life, revealing a betrayal so deep it stole your breath? I was standing there, shivering on the porch, the Christmas lights behind me blinking like they were mocking me. My mother's voice still sliced through the frigid air, sharp enough to cut right through the cold. "You can't do anything on your own, Lena. Not one damn thing." Then a trash bag, filled with God knows what, was shoved into my arms. A second later, my father slammed the door so hard the wreath nearly fell off, and the lock clicked like a final, chilling verdict. Behind me, perfectly decorated houses glowed with warm holiday dinners, laughter, families. And there I was, standing in the snow, no coat, no home, and not a single family member willing to claim me. A few neighbors peeked through their curtains, pretending they hadn't just witnessed the Carringtons throw their daughter out like she was yesterday's garbage. My phone had no service. My bank app showed a humiliating balance of $182. The winter wind sliced through my thin sweater, and for the first time in my life, I truly understood what it felt like to be completely unwanted. That's when my hand brushed the inside of my coat pocket and hit something solid, cold, metallic. It was the old black card my grandfather gave me when I was 6, the one he said to use only when I had nowhere left to go. Finally, I managed to move my numb feet down the steps and toward my car. The snow made my sandals slick, and I almost fell twice. As I reached the sidewalk, the trash bag tore open. Inside weren't my clothes or my documents or anything that belonged to me. Just random junk, a bleach-stained towel, a broken Christmas ornament, a half-burned candle. They couldn't even give me the courtesy of my own things. My car groaned when I started it, the engine whining like it didn't want to cooperate. Honestly? Same. I sat in the front seat, my hands shaking so hard the keys rattled. My breath fogged the windshield. The heater barely worked, blowing cold air across my face while I stared at the house I grew up in, now locked behind a door my parents made sure I could never open again. I replayed the scene from 20 minutes earlier. Christmas Eve dinner burned in the oven because my mother was too busy criticizing my posture. My father complained about the cost of the holiday lights. My brother rolled his eyes at everything I said. Then the fuse blew. When I told them I wouldn't co-sign for a loan they wanted under my name, suddenly, I was ungrateful, selfish, a leech. Their words piled up faster than the snow outside. My mother snapped first, calling me a disappointment. My father followed with a shouted, "Get out," that echoed down the hallway. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed how fast my family could discard me. They always said I'd come crawling back. But tonight, as I sat in my cold car, staring at their warm windows, something shifted inside me. I didn't want to crawl back. Ever again. But wanting strength and having options are two different things. My stomach growled, reminding me I hadn't eaten since yesterday. It was almost midnight, and my body felt like it was made of hollow glass. I searched for hotels nearby, but the prices might as well have been $1 million. I tried calling a few friends, but my mother had spent years quietly isolating me from most of them. A part of me wondered if this moment was exactly what she wanted, for me to be so alone. I'd have no choice but to obey her forever. I refused to let that be the ending. I drove to a 24-hour diner because it was the only place I could sit without being thrown out. The neon sign flickered as I parked. The waitress gave me a look, sympathetic, but cautious, as I slid into a booth and ordered the cheapest cup of coffee they had. I cradled it between my frozen hands like it was the last warm thing on earth. And then, like it had been waiting for this moment all along, the black card slipped out of my coat pocket and clinked softly against the table. I froze. I remembered the exact moment my grandfather gave it to me. I was 6, sitting on his lap in the backyard while my parents fought inside. He pressed the card into my small hands and whispered, "One day, sweetheart. You'll need this. Use it only when you have no one else." At the time, I told him I would never need it. My parents loved me. Or so I thought. The waitress passed by and glanced at the card. Her eyes widened, and she quickly looked away. You have one of those," she murmured before heading back toward the kitchen like she shouldn't have said anything. I ran my thumb over the smooth metal surface. No name, just numbers engraved in gold. It didn't even look like a normal bank card. It looked older, heavier, like a key to something I was never meant to open too early. I pulled out my phone, 3% battery left, and searched for the bank logo etched on the corner, Cumberland National Trust. Only one branch nearby was open until 6 the next day. The building looked like something out of an old movie, with marble pillars and brass handles. Far too elegant for someone like me. But the card came from Grandfather Henry. And if there was ever a moment I needed whatever he was trying to give me, it was now. My phone died in my hand. Perfect. I sat there for 2 hours, nursing the same coffee. The waitress refilled it twice without charging me, probably out of pity. Or maybe she saw something in my face. She recognized someone trying desperately not to fall apart. I kept the card hidden under my palm the entire time, afraid someone might see it. Afraid of losing the one thing that might save me. Eventually, exhaustion won. I stumbled back to my car and curled up in the back seat, pulling my thin jacket over my knees. The windows fogged as my breath turned white. The heater had long since given up. My fingers went numb first, then my toes. Fear crept in. The kind of fear only people with nowhere to sleep understand. I thought of Grandfather Henry again, his warm hands, his quiet smile, the way he always looked at me like I mattered. Maybe he knew this day was coming. Maybe he tried to warn me in the only way he could. Grandpa, I whispered into the cold darkness. I hope you knew what you were doing. The black card lay against my chest, tucked under the jacket like a heartbeat I was borrowing. Tomorrow, I'd walk into that bank. Tomorrow, I'd find out whether this card was worthless or the one thing that could change everything. For the first time since being thrown out into the snow, I felt a flicker of something warm inside me. Not hope, exactly, but possibility. And possibility was enough to survive one more night. The lights inside Cumberland National Trust glowed warm against the gray morning. As I pulled into the nearly empty parking lot, my stomach twisted so hard it felt like I'd swallowed a stone. I'd barely slept in the backseat of my car. My fingers were still numb when I gripped the strange black card in my pocket, the only thing keeping me from collapsing under the weight of everything that had happened last night. I sat there for a minute, engine off, breath fogging the windshield, trying to convince myself I wasn't insane for being here. But then I remembered my mother's voice. You can't do anything on your own. Sharp enough to slice through bone. If I didn't walk into that bank now, her words would become true. I refused to let them become true. I opened the door and stepped into the cold. The wind stung my cheeks as I walked toward the towering building with marble columns and brass-framed windows. It looked like the kind of place where real money lived. Old money. The kind of money my parents always pretended we came from, even though our house was financed through loans they always struggled to pay. This building didn't belong to people like them. It definitely didn't belong to people like me. Unless my grandfather meant what he said all those years ago. Inside, the air smelled faintly of polished wood and winter coats. A receptionist in her 50s looked up from her desk and smiled the kind of polite smile bank workers always give customers they assume don't belong here. Good morning. How can we help you today? My voice almost caught. I need to check the balance on an old account. I have the card. I slid it across the counter. The receptionist's smile slipped, not rudely, but with recognition. Unexpected recognition. She turned the card over, examining it like it was a relic from another century. I'll call a manager, she said quietly. A manager? For a balance check? My brain, fried from exhaustion and fear, immediately jumped to the worst conclusions. Maybe the account was closed. Maybe the card was worthless. Maybe I was about to be escorted out for wasting their time. I sat in one of the leather chairs near the window, folding my freezing hands in my lap. A mother with a toddler walked past me, the child giggling as he tried to grab her scarf. A retired couple sat a few seats away, quietly reviewing a stack of papers. Normal people with normal lives on a normal morning. None of them knew I was homeless. None of them knew the reason I was here was because my parents shoved me out the front door like unwanted mail. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Just when I was about to convince myself to flee out of pure humiliation, a tall man in a charcoal suit appeared in the doorway. He looked like he'd stepped out of a financial magazine. Sharp haircut, immaculate tie, expression controlled but not unfriendly. Miss Carrington, he said, hesitating only long enough to check my ID in his hand. Yes, I'm Lena. He nodded. I'm Elliot Hayes, the branch manager. Would you come with me? We need to discuss your account privately. My heart slammed against my ribs. Privately? That word felt too big, too heavy. I forced myself to stand and follow him down a hallway lined with framed photos of the bank's founders. Stern men in old-fashioned suits staring down at me like I didn't belong. His office smelled like cedar and something crisp and expensive. He gestured for me to sit, then closed the door behind us. "Before we proceed," he said, settling behind his desk, "I need to verify your identity." I handed him my driver's license with shaking fingers. He studied it, typed something on his computer, the screen reflecting faintly in his glasses, a bright glow against his composed face. His eyebrows rose only slightly, but I saw it. "Miss Carrington," he finally said, "the card you brought in today is one of our legacy accounts. It hasn't been used in many years." He turned the screen toward me, and for a moment, everything inside me stopped. Rows of documents, dozens of linked files, account details that looked nothing like a simple savings account. And at the top corner of the screen, something that didn't make sense at all. "It's active," I whispered. "Yes," Elliot said. "Very active and very well protected." I swallowed hard. "Protected from?" He paused. "From anyone but you." The words hit me like a punch. My grandfather wasn't dramatic. He wasn't cryptic. He didn't leave mysteries. Except he did. He left this. Whatever this was. Elliot pulled up another file, an internal note dated 23 years ago. My eyes widened as I read the name, Henry Carrington, my grandfather. He set up this account when I was only 7. He wrote a directive, only accessible by my granddaughter Lena and only when she presents the physical legacy card. I felt dizzy. The room seemed too small, too bright, too surreal. Elliot leaned forward, his voice lowering slightly. "Miss Carrington, before I show you anything else, may I ask why you decided to use the card today?" I looked down at my hands. They were trembling again, but I didn't lean back or try to hide it. "My parents kicked me out last night," I said quietly. "On Christmas Eve. They didn't even let me take my things. I don't have money for a hotel. I didn't know what else to do." Elliot's expression didn't change dramatically, but something in his posture softened. "I see." It was 2 small words, but they held something I hadn't heard in a long time. Respect. Or maybe concern. Or maybe compassion. Real compassion from someone who didn't know me, someone who didn't benefit from comforting me. I forced myself to stay steady. "I don't even know if there's anything in the account. I just remembered my grandfather said to use it if I had nowhere else to turn." Elliot nodded slowly. He was very intentional about that. He clicked into another section on the screen. My stomach twisted tighter. The numbers flickered into view. For the first time in hours, I inhaled sharply. The breath felt like ice in my lungs. "Is that?" I could barely form the words. "Is that the balance?" Elliot didn't answer. Not immediately. He let the moment land, let the truth sit between us. Then he gently rotated the monitor all the way so I could see it fully. But I didn't. Not yet. Because I couldn't bring myself to look. I was terrified. Terrified it was nothing. Terrified it was something. Terrified of what either possibility meant. Finally, I forced my eyes to the numbers, and everything inside me folded. I blinked rapidly, unable to comprehend the digits, the commas, the sheer length of the balance. My pulse spiked, a roaring in my ears, drowning out everything in the room. "No," I whispered. "That can't be right." Elliot's voice was steady. "It is." The air left my lungs all at once. My hands flew to my mouth. I gasped like someone pulled me out of deep water. Because the number on the screen wasn't small. It wasn't even modest. It wasn't something I could explain away or rationalize. It was life-changing. It was unreal. It was impossible. I shook my head, breath hitching. My parents, they always said he had nothing. They said he lived off Social Security. They said he couldn't help me even if he wanted to. Elliot folded his hands. "Your parents were not given access to this account, ever. Your grandfather's instructions were explicit." My throat burned. My vision blurred. For years, I believed my grandfather forgot about me. For years, I believed my parents' narrative, that he didn't care, that he was confused, that he didn't love me. But he did. He loved me enough to prepare for the day they would cast me out. I pressed a trembling hand over my heart. I could feel it pounding, frantic and furious. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why me? Why did he do all this for me?" Elliot slowly opened a drawer and placed a sealed red folder on the desk between us. "Because he wanted you to know the truth," he said softly. "All of it." I stared at the folder. My grandfather's handwriting covered the top. "For Lena, when you are finally free." My chest tightened. Elliot met my eyes. "Miss Carrington, I think you should read this." And with that sentence, my entire life tilted on its axis. Elliot had turned the screen toward me slowly, as if he knew the numbers on it might break something open inside me. At first, the rows of digits didn't register. My brain tried to make sense of them, but I'd never seen numbers that long outside of corporate scandals or tech company valuations on the news. My breath stalled. My pulse skidded sideways. For a moment, I genuinely thought the monitor must be showing someone else's information, someone important, someone powerful, someone who wasn't me. But then Elliot spoke, his voice low and almost reverent. "Miss Carrington, this is your account." My heart lurches so hard it hurts. I blinked at the screen again. $63.8 million. My hands gripped the armrests of the leather chair so tightly my knuckles turned white. The world felt like it was tilting, as if the floor underneath us wasn't marble, but ice about to crack. There has to be a mistake. I can't even pay for a motel room. I slept in my car last night, using a jacket as a blanket. I am the kind of person who measures grocery trips against how many days I can stretch a pack of pasta. And yet here I was, staring at more money than my parents had seen in their entire lives. My voice cracked. That can't be real. Elliot didn't smile, didn't comfort me, didn't sugarcoat. He simply nodded once, firmly. It's real. And this is only the liquid portion. Only the liquid portion. The phrase made my stomach swoop. He started clicking through tabs, each one filled with information that knocked the air out of me. Commercial property deeds, land holdings in 3 counties, stocks, and companies I recognized from headlines. A partnership in a robotics firm I'd definitely heard about on the news. My grandfather, the quiet man who wore the same sweater for years, who ate canned soup for lunch, who insisted coupons were the cornerstone of a wise life, owned a fortune. More than a fortune. An empire. I was still staring when Elliot reached to the side and pulled a red folder from a locked drawer. He set it gently in front of me like it was something living. "This contains the files your grandfather asked us to keep sealed until you came in with the legacy card." Legacy. That word hit me in the chest. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. The first thing inside was a handwritten letter addressed to me in my grandfather's looping script. The sight of his handwriting alone made my throat burn. But before I could read it, a line of text printed on the inside cover caught my eye. "For Lena's eyes only, the truth about your parents." A cold ripple moved up my spine. Why would he? I started. Elliot gently cleared his throat. "Miss Carrington, your grandfather was very deliberate. You were meant to know everything once you were no longer under their control." Under their control. Hearing someone else say it made bile rise in my throat. My parents weren't strict. They weren't protective. They were suffocating, manipulative, controlling in ways I could never fully articulate. I turned the page. A timeline appeared, month by month, year by year. Documentation of my grandfather's last decade. Medical reports showing he was mentally competent. Banking notes, legal communications. Every detail carefully recorded in case he ever needed to prove his decisions. My parents always said he was confused, fading, losing touch with reality. They said that was why he never left them anything, why he didn't want visitors, why I shouldn't bother him with my presence. Lie after lie after lie. The documents showed the truth. He begged them to let me visit him. Begged. My mother intercepted the letters he wrote. The folder contained scanned copies. Letters I never saw. One read, "My sweet girl, I miss you every day. They won't let me see you. I don't know why, but please remember I love you more than life itself." A tear hit the page before I could stop it. My vision blurred. I gripped the folder like it was the only solid thing in the room. "I never got any of these," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I know," Elliot said softly. "Your grandfather suspected they were intercepting them." I turned another page. A legal statement Henry filed after an incident 8 years ago. "If anything happens to me suddenly, investigate Richard and Ella Carrington first." Seeing my parents' names in black ink under the words suspected coercion and financial manipulation made my stomach twist. My grandfather knew. He knew what they were capable of, knew what they did to him, and what they would eventually do to me. I picked up the letter addressed to me. My fingers trembled as I unfolded it. "My Lena, if you are reading this, it means they have cast you aside. I hoped it wouldn't happen, but I feared it would. They value control above all else. You must know this truth. None of their words about you were ever real. You were never weak. You were never a burden. You were the best part of this family. Everything I built because I knew you would one day need freedom. Take this chance, my dear girl. Use it to live the life they never allowed you to dream of. You are my legacy." With all my love, Grandpa Henry I pressed the letter to my chest. A sob escaped me, raw and painful. For years, I thought he forgot me. I thought I wasn't worth remembering. I was wrong. My parents made sure I believed I was forgettable. They kept me small, quiet, obedient. They shaped my entire sense of self around the lie that I was unwanted. But here, in this folder, was proof of the opposite. Proof that the only person who ever saw me clearly left everything to me because he believed I deserved better. Why me? I whispered again. Why not my father? Why not my brother? Elliot looked at me with a level of sympathy that felt almost parental. Because he trusted you. Because he saw their intentions long before you could. And because you were the only person who cared for him without wanting anything in return. I swallowed hard. Memories flooded me. Sitting in my grandfather's garden while he told me stories, while my parents dismissed him as old-fashioned or irrelevant. I never understood why he always looked at me with such sadness. Such knowing. Now I do. I turned another page. More evidence. More lies unraveled. More truth revealed. My father tried to gain power of attorney over Henry when he was hospitalized once. The doctor refused to sign the competency declaration. My mother pressured Henry to invest in family plans involving Michael's failed business. And when Henry refused, they cut ties. Not because they cared for his health, but because they were furious he wouldn't hand them control. My breath shook as I closed the file. What happens now? I asked. Elliot folded his hands. Now, Miss Carrington, you decide what you want. But before anything else, there is one final document your grandfather left. It requires your authorization to access it. He placed a small biometric scanner on the desk beside an encrypted drive. This contains the full truth about your family, he said quietly. And instructions from your grandfather for your future. Instructions? My heartbeat pounded. The room felt too still. Are you ready? He asked. Am I? My parents threw me out like trash. They made sure I had nothing. No money, no clothes, no home, no self-worth. And yet, the man they dismissed as senile and worthless built an empire and left every piece of it to me. I don't know if I'm ready, but I know I have to be. I placed my thumb on the scanner. The light turned green. The encrypted drive began to unlock, loading files line by line. Elliot watched the screen, his expression tightening. There's something else, he murmured, almost to himself. Something your grandfather didn't want anyone to find until now. The final file loaded. Elliot exhaled, turned the monitor toward me, and said, Miss Carrington, you need to see this. The encrypted files loaded line by line, the cursor blinking like a pulse on a heart monitor, steady and unhurried, while my own heartbeat pounded loud enough to drown out the quiet hum of Elliot's office. I tried to breathe normally, but it felt like every breath hitched in my chest. When the screen finally stopped flickering, Elliot angled the monitor toward me. Miss Carrington, he said softly. Your grandfather wanted you to see this, if he ever feared your parents would harm you financially, emotionally, or otherwise. The first file opened automatically. A title stretched across the top in bold letters. For Lena's eyes only, a complete record of your parents' actions. My stomach nodded. I set my hands in my lap so they didn't visibly shake, but I don't think it helped. I clicked the first entry. A timeline appeared. 10 years of dates. 10 years of carefully documented reports, emails, transcripts, and notarized statements. Every entry written or signed by my grandfather. My throat closed slowly, like someone was squeezing it. The first note began, my son and his wife have begun attempting to control my financial decisions. I blinked, reading it twice. My parents always claimed he was forgetful, losing touch with the world, my mother would say, shaking her head with exaggerated pity. My father called him unstable and said I should stop visiting him because it stressed him out. But the tone of this note was steady, clear, sharp. Nothing about it was confused. I scrolled. Another entry appeared, this one with a scanned doctor's evaluation. Patient is fully competent. No signs of dementia or cognitive impairment. Recommending continued independent living with regular medical check-ins. I felt like falling through the chair. Every story my parents told me collapsed like it was built of tissue paper. They said he couldn't manage his money anymore. They said he was embarrassed to see me. They said he didn't recognize me. They said he didn't want visitors. All lies. The next set of files were letters written in my grandfather's familiar looping handwriting. Each addressed to me, each dated during a period when my parents told me he didn't want to see anyone. My breath catches. There were dozens. I clicked the first one. My dearest Lena, I've written to you twice without a reply. I assume your parents are not giving you my letters. A sound slipped out of me, half gasp, half wounded noise, the kind I didn't even know I could make. I felt 10 years old again, sitting on my childhood bed, wondering why I mattered so little. I clicked another. I asked them again today if you could come visit. They said you were too busy. I hope you know I would drop everything to see you if I could. A tear falls onto the desk. I wiped it away quickly, embarrassed, but Elliot remained respectfully silent, as if he'd seen grief take many forms and understood this one. Another document loads automatically. This one, not a letter, but a transcript. Meeting record, Cumberland National Trust. Attending, Henry Carrington, Estate Manager. Initials, EC, Compliance Officer. My grandfather's voice came through faintly in the audio file, shaky only because of age, not confusion. My son and daughter-in-law attempted to have me declared mentally incompetent today. They brought in papers they wanted me to sign. I refused. I stopped the audio, hands trembling harder. My parents tried to take his finances, tried to control him. They did the same thing to me in every way that didn't require a bank signature. When was this? I whispered. Elliot clicked to the date. 9 years ago. The year I graduated from high school, the year they forbade me from visiting him for his own good. It wasn't for his good. It was because he stood between them and access to his money. I scrolled again. More documents. More proof. A physician's note. Adult children appear motivated by financial gain, not concerned for the patient's well-being. Recommend legal barriers be reinforced. My pulse was so loud it thudded in my ears. Elliot shifted slightly in his chair. Your grandfather was very clear that you were the only person he trusted. I swallowed hard. Why didn't he tell me any of this? Why didn't he warn me? He tried, Elliot says gently. Your parents cut off all channels of communication. I close my eyes. They didn't just isolate him. They isolated me from him. From the one person who truly loved me. I turned to the next section labeled Attempted Financial Takeover, Incident Record. Inside were scanned copies of bank statements, legal notices, and a formal report filed by my grandfather. They tried to gain full control of his assets by claiming he was unfit. They demanded the bank release his accounts to them. They even tried to move money into a family-managed trust with themselves listed as primary beneficiaries. My stomach churned as I read the note my grandfather added beneath the report, protect Lena from them if anything happens to me. The words burned. I kept scrolling. Another cluster of documents revealed how my parents began portraying him as unstable to their friends, neighbors, the community, poisoning the reputation of the one person who saw straight through them. Emails between my mother and father appeared, ones I was never meant to see. Sentences jumped out at me like venom. He needs to give us control or he'll waste everything on nonsense. We deserve access after everything we've done. If Lena keeps visiting him, he might leave her something. Everything finally, painfully, horribly made sense. The sudden shift in their rules, the guilt-tripping, the coldness, the moments where they forgot to tell me he called, the pressure to distance myself from him. They did it because he loved me and because they hated that. My throat stings. I scrolled again. This time a map pops up. An aerial view with red markings, circles, hand-drawn arrows. Beside it, a typed label, properties to be transferred to Lena under protective trust. There were 10 markers. 10. Not just money, not just stocks, land, rented buildings, a stake in a robotics company. He built something massive and hid it from the very people who wanted to exploit him. I opened the final document in the folder. A note handwritten in faint, shaky ink. My darling Lena, if you are reading this, then what I feared has happened. They have done to you what they tried to do to me. Do not let them back into your life. They will only take and take and take until there is nothing left of you. Use what I've left you to build a life of your own choosing. You have always deserved more than they ever gave you. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you more, but I prepared everything so that when they showed who they truly are, you would finally know who you truly are. Not their child. Not their burden. Not their failure. My legacy. Henry. I'm shaking so hard I can barely hold the letter. For years, I thought I was unwanted, a disappointment, a problem, a burden too heavy for my parents to tolerate. But none of that was true. They weren't pushing me away because I was unlovable. They were pushing me away because they were terrified of what I might inherit, both financially and emotionally, what I might know, who I might become. The door behind me clicks softly as Elliot stands. There is one more step, he says, voice still gentle. Your grandfather created multiple layers of protection. To access the sealed vault containing the rest of his instructions, legal, financial, and personal, we need your biometric authorization. My head spins. There's more? Yes, he says. Much more. I look at the black card on the desk. The strange weight of it. The way it hums with something like memory. My whole life I believed the story my parents fed me. Today, that story ends. And the real one begins. I straighten in the chair, wiping my tears with the back of my hand. Show me what he left, I say. Elliot nods and powers on the biometric scanner. The future glows on the screen, waiting for me to claim it. Lena walked out of the bank with the red confidential folder pressed tightly to her chest. Snowflakes melted against the thin fabric of her sweater. The cold barely registered. Her mind was too full, too loud, bursting at the seams with everything she had just learned. $63 million, properties, investments, letters her parents stole. A lifetime of truth, buried under years of lies. Her entire world had broken open inside a marble office with brass fixtures and gentle lighting. She felt shaky, electrified, weightless in the worst and best way. She reached her beat-up car, slid into the driver's seat, and didn't start the engine. She just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, forehead against the leather. The parking lot around her blurred through the frost gathering on the windows. For a moment, she closed her eyes and just breathed. She wasn't broken. She wasn't worthless. She wasn't what her parents said she was. She had proof. But with that proof came a new terror. What now? The black card rested in her pocket, warmed from her touch. She pulled it out, running her thumb along the engraved gold numbers. Her grandfather had known. He prepared for this. He had expected this. And that thought both comforted her and shattered her heart. 10 minutes passed, maybe 20. Eventually, she forced herself upright, wiping her face. She wasn't going to collapse in a bank parking lot. Not when she finally had something resembling power. Her phone buzzed suddenly. Unknown number. We need to talk. Her stomach twisted. She blocked it before the fear could get a foothold. She turned the key and drove. The farther she got from the bank, the more surreal everything felt. It was like she was floating above herself, watching a version of her she barely recognized. The Lena who drove to the diner last night was homeless, desperate, shaking in the cold. The Lena leaving Cumberland National Trust was something else entirely. Not rich, not yet, not emotionally, but no longer someone her parents could crush. Eventually, she pulled into the parking lot of a small cafe she used to visit in college. Warm lights, fogged windows, the lingering smell of cinnamon and roasted coffee drifting out the cracked door every time a customer entered. She needed to sit, to think, to breathe like a human being and not a creature running from the wreckage of her own life. Inside, a Christmas tree glowed in the corner, decorated with mismatched ornaments from local school children. A couple in their 70s sat near the window, laughing gently about something in the newspaper. A barista hummed along to a holiday playlist. Normal. Everything felt so painfully normal. Lena slid into a booth, her hand still trembling as she opened the red folder. The documents inside were organized, neat, curated by someone who loved her enough to plan for a future she didn't know she needed. But this wasn't everything. Elliot had mentioned another meeting, someone else. She checked her phone, a voicemail from the bank. Miss Carrington, this is Elliot. Before you leave town today, please return to the branch. We need to complete the estate disclosures with our senior specialist. It's important. She shut her eyes, exhaling shakily. Important was an understatement. 20 minutes later, she was back in the marble lobby, snow melting off her boots. Elliot met her immediately, his expression more serious than before. He introduced her to a woman with silver hair, warm eyes, and a voice like steady oak. Miss Carrington, she greeted, offering her hand. I'm Marjorie Keene. I managed your grandfather's accounts for 22 years. Lena blinked. You knew him well. Marjorie's gaze softened. He was one of the most thoughtful clients I've ever had. He spoke about you constantly. The words hit so hard Lena almost forgot to breathe. Marjorie led them to a private conference room. Papers were already spread out across the table. Property maps, valuation reports, legal notes, investment summaries, and another box, smaller, locked. This, Marjorie said, touching the lid gently, was left in our care for you, but it required 2 forms of authorization. One from you, one from your grandfather. My grandfather passed, Lena whispered. Marjorie nodded. He provided a pre-recorded authorization video. We'll use your biometric ID to complete the verification. Lena stared down at the box, her chest tight. This wasn't just money. This was intention. A legacy. Protection. Love. Are you ready? Marjorie asked. Lena nodded, even though she wasn't ready at all. The scanner beeped. A green light flashed. The lock clicked. When Marjorie lifted the lid, Lena felt the air thrum. Inside were keys, dozens of them, each tagged with a neat, handwritten label. A storage facility number. A farmhouse address she didn't recognize. A commercial building. Something labeled Carrington Lot. Do not sell. And a sealed envelope with corporate logos she traced with her finger in disbelief. What is all this? Your grandfather's hidden portfolio, Marjorie explained. He didn't trust your parents to know about it. He didn't trust anyone but you. Lena felt her throat close. But they always said he was broke. They always told me he'd mismanaged everything. Marjorie sighed softly. Your parents tried to take control of his estate a decade ago. When they failed, they turned to misinformation. Misinformation? A polite word for lies. Lena reached into the box, pulling out an envelope labeled Atlas Robotics Partnership. She blinked at it. I've heard of this company, she whispered. It's worth several billion now, Marjorie said. Your grandfather was one of the original private investors. He saved them from bankruptcy in the late 80s. The room tilted. He never sold any shares. No, Marjorie said. He left the entire stake to you. Lena had no words. None. Her grandfather wasn't just financially secure. He was brilliant, strategic, quietly powerful in ways her parents never understood. We estimate your total holdings exceed what you saw on the initial screen, Marjorie continued carefully. By a significant margin. How significant? Lena whispered. Elliot's voice lowered. 8 figures, possibly 9, depending on asset liquidation. A laugh slipped out of her. Not a happy one. A startled, broken, stunned sound. My parents threw me out with a bag of trash. Neither banker responded. They didn't need to. Lena pressed her palms to her face, breathing through the tremors in her chest. Her parents' last words still echoed in her skull. Useless, weak, worth nothing. But all along, the truth was the opposite. Her grandfather had believed she was worth everything. When she lowered her hands, Marjorie pulled out one more document. Thin, delicate. Before his passing, she said, your grandfather filed a protective clause. In the event your parents, or any party acting on their behalf, attempted to seize your inheritance, we were instructed to alert legal counsel immediately and place security measures on your access. Legal counsel? Lena echoed. Yes, your grandfather retained an attorney specifically for your future interests. Vivian Rodas, one of the best in the state. Lena blinked. Why would I need? The question broke off because she suddenly understood. Her parents, they always tried to take control of things that weren't theirs. Even when she was a child. Even when it meant hurting someone. Her grandfather had known they might turn that greed toward her one day. He prepared for a war she didn't know she was living in. Elliot slid a sleek black business card across the table. Vivian Rodas, Inheritance Protection and High-Risk Asset Disputes. Lena picked it up, the card heavier than it looked. Call her, Marjorie said gently. She'll guide you through the next steps. Next steps. Lena repeated faintly. There are more steps? Elliot nodded, his gaze steady. Your parents will likely attempt something once they realize they no longer control you, especially if they ever learned about this account. A chill ran across her skin. You don't think they already suspect something? I think, Elliot said carefully, your arrival at the bank may trigger movement on their end. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. We heard you stopped by the bank. Call us now. Her blood turned to ice. Elliot's expression hardened. Miss Carrington, do not speak to them. Not directly, not through intermediaries. Not at all. Lena swallowed. What do I say if they reach me again? Marjorie answered calmly. You say nothing. Lena closed the folder gently. She didn't feel powerless anymore. Terrified, yes. Overwhelmed, absolutely. But powerless? No. Her grandfather had given her a path out of the life her parents tried to trap her in. He had laid out the truth, brick by brick, for her to follow. She stood. Set the meeting, she said, gripping Vivian's card. I'm ready. Elliot nodded once approvingly, and as Lena walked out of the bank into the falling snow, the world didn't feel so impossible anymore. Hard, yes. Dangerous, absolutely. But she finally had something worth fighting for. Her life. Her freedom. Her future. And she wasn't giving any of it back. I'm sitting in my car outside the cafe with Vivian's business card still warm in my hand. the world tilting in slow circles around me. The folder on the passenger seat holds more truth than I've ever had in my entire life. And yet, all I can think about is how empty I feel. Not of hope, of energy, of breath, of strength. My body feels like it's running on fumes after 2 nights of fear and no sleep. I'm telling myself to move, to stand, to get out of the car and drink something with sugar in it, but my limbs feel heavy and uncooperative. When I finally pull the door open, my legs wobble. I step out onto the sidewalk and the cold air steals whatever is left of my balance. My vision tunnels. The world shifts sideways. I hear a door chime behind me. And before I can brace myself, everything swoops. A pair of hands catches my arms before I hit the ground. Hey, Easy. You okay? The voice is deep, steady, and startlingly calm. I blink up and see a man with warm brown eyes, a dark coat, a doctor's ID still clipped to his pocket like he just walked out of a hospital shift. His gaze is focused, assessing in a way that's frighteningly competent. I'm fine, I lie. You're not fine, he answers, helping me toward a booth inside the cafe. You nearly fainted. He signals the barista without breaking eye contact with me. Water and orange juice, please. I sink into the seat, embarrassed, dizzy, my heart thudding against my ribs. He slides into the booth across from me, watching carefully. I'm Marcus, he says gently. Dr. Marcus Hale, cardiologist. Are you sure you're all right? I nod, even though my hands are trembling. Just tired. A lot's happened. His brow furrows. He doesn't ask questions immediately, just waits, letting me breathe. There's something disarming about him. Not comforting exactly, but grounding, like he's used to talking people off emotional edges. The drinks arrive. I take a sip of the orange juice, the sugar hitting my bloodstream like a jolt. Thank you, I whisper. Marcus nods. Do you have someone you can call? A friend? Family? A bitter laugh slips out. Not family. He doesn't push. Then someone else? I shake my head. My throat tightens. Maybe it's the exhaustion. Maybe it's the fact that for once, someone is asking if I have support instead of telling me I'm a burden. He leans forward slightly. Look, I don't know what happened to you, but you look like someone who hasn't eaten or slept in too long, and you're shaking like you're freezing. I slept in my car last night, I admit quietly. His expression softens with something like sorrow. Then let me ask a different question. Are you safe now? The calmness in his voice catches me off guard because... Am I? I'm not sure anymore. I thought my new apartment would be a fresh start. Then I thought being thrown out of my parents' house would be the worst thing that could happen. Then I found out everything I knew about my grandfather was a lie. Now the truth sits heavy in my bag, and the danger feels close. Too close? I don't know, I whisper. Marcus doesn't look shocked the way some people would. He just nods once, as if confirming a diagnosis he already suspected. All right. Tell me what you need. The question unravels something inside me. No one's ever asked me that. Not my parents, not my brother, not anyone who is supposed to care. My throat tightens. I need a place to think. I need to figure out my next steps. Then let's start with getting you warm and fed, he says. Everything else can come afterward. He signals for a menu, even though I didn't ask for one. I try to protest, but he holds up a hand. I'm not doing this out of pity, he says gently. You just nearly collapsed. Let a doctor worry about you for 10 minutes. I nod, because arguing feels impossible. As I sip the orange juice, Marcus studies me with a kind of quiet attention that feels more like a blanket than an interrogation. You look like someone who's carrying too much by yourself, he murmurs. I swallow hard. My parents kicked me out last night. His face shifts, anger flickering briefly before he reins it back. I'm sorry, he says softly. No one deserves that. The simplicity of the statement makes my eyes sting, because that's what I needed to hear last night. That I didn't deserve it. Not silence, not coldness, not the sound of the deadbolt sliding into place while snow soaked my socks. I take another shaky breath. They threw out a trash bag and said I could take whatever fit. It wasn't even my stuff. Marcus exhales sharply through his nose. That's cruel. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't make excuses for them. He doesn't say they were stressed or emotional. He calls it what it is, cruel. And somehow, hearing someone else name it makes the truth settle deeper in my bones. When the food arrives, scrambled eggs and toast, my hands tremble again. Marcus notices. Eat slowly, he says. Your blood sugar tanked. I nod and take a bite. Warmth spreads through my chest, thawing something I didn't realize had frozen. Do you have a place to stay tonight? He asks once I've eaten enough to feel human again. I'll figure something out, I mumble, even though I have no idea where I'll go. He sighs quietly, not frustrated, more like concerned. I know you don't know me, and I'm not asking for details you're not ready to share. But if you need somewhere safe, the hospital lobby is open 24/7. Security is always present. You won't be alone. I look up at him, surprised. Why are you being so nice to me? He smiles softly, but it's a sad smile. Because 5 years ago, someone had to be kind to me when my world collapsed, and it saved my life. His grief is quiet, but unmistakable. A woman he loved, gone. The shadow of her still sitting beside him in the booth. I'm sorry, I whisper. Me too, he says quietly. But kindness doesn't have to end with the people we lose. Silence settles between us. Not awkward, not heavy, just real. When I finish eating, I gather my things to leave, but Marcus stops me with a gentle touch on my sleeve. Wait. He pulls a pen from his coat pocket and writes something on a napkin. His handwriting is steady, neat. If anything happens, if you feel unsafe or dizzy again, or just need someone to check in, call me. No pressure, no expectations. I stare at the napkin. His name and number look unreal. I don't want to drag anyone into my mess, I whisper. He stands as I do, adjusting his coat. Lena, sometimes life throws us into storms we didn't ask for. Letting someone stand next to you isn't dragging them in. It's surviving. My throat tightens again. I slip the napkin into my pocket next to my grandfather's black card. Thank you, I breathe. He holds the door open for me. Take care of yourself and please be careful. I nod and step into the cold. Snowflakes swirl around me as I walk back to my car. The warmth of the cafe fades behind me, but something else remains. A steadiness I didn't have before. When I reach the driver's seat, my phone buzzes again. A voicemail from Vivian Rodas. My legal appointment is set for tomorrow. Urgent, she said. Come early. In the back seat, I see the red folder. The truth about my parents, my grandfather, my inheritance, my life. For the first time in years, I feel the faintest spark of strength inside me. I'm not alone anymore. Maybe for the first time ever. And that changes everything. The first thing I see when I wake up is the glowing notification on my phone screen. 5 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 2 emails from addresses I don't recognize. For one blissful second, I forget everything. My parents, the court paperwork Vivian prepared, the truth about the inheritance. But then the dread slides down my spine like ice water. I turn the phone back on. The messages load slowly. Unknown email. You stole something that belongs to us. Call immediately. Unknown email number 2. We know what your grandfather left you. You can't hide from your own family. My breath catches. My palms grow slick. They know. Somehow they know. I forward everything to Vivian with shaking fingers. She replies almost instantly. Block all unknown contacts. Do not respond. This is escalation. I stare at the phone. Ball rising in my throat. They aren't asking if I'm safe. They aren't shocked I'm homeless. They aren't apologizing. They're demanding, accusing, threatening. My parents didn't lose a daughter. They lost control. My hands shake as I throw on clothes and grab the folder from the floor. Every step feels unsteady, like I'm walking into a storm I barely understand. Before leaving the hotel room, my phone buzzes again. Unknown number. You will regret not cooperating. My stomach twists. I block it instantly and rush outside. The cold slaps me in the face as I hurry toward my car, eyes darting across the parking lot. And that's when I see it again. The gray sedan. The same one from yesterday. Same tinted windows. Same slow, predatory presence. It sits 2 rows away, engine idling, exhaust ghosting into the winter air. My pulse spikes. I duck into my car and lock the doors. I try not to look, but my eyes flick back anyway. The sedan doesn't move. Doesn't drive away. It just waits. I breathe through my panic long enough to call Vivian. She answers on the second ring. Tell me everything. I describe the calls, the emails, the car. Your parents hired someone, she says flatly. That's a private investigator. He's tailing you. Document everything. We can use it in court. I grip the steering wheel tighter. Why would they send someone after me? Because they're desperate, Vivian replies. They wanted control of your grandfather's estate for years. Now they know you're beyond their reach. I'm beyond their reach, I whisper. What do I do? You meet me at the office, she says. Today. Bring everything. I pull out of the parking lot and try to swallow my fear, but my chest won't loosen. Every turn, I check the rearview mirror. Every time I slow down, the sedan slows too. My hands shake so violently, I almost miss my exit. My phone buzzes again. Marcus. Hey, you okay? You sounded tense yesterday. I exhale a trembling breath and text back with stiff fingers. I think I'm being followed. He calls immediately. Lena, where are you? Are you safe? No, I whisper, because it's the first time I've admitted it aloud. I don't think I am. Stay on the phone, Marcus says. I'm heading toward my office at the hospital. Tell me exactly where you are. I follow his voice, steady and calm, until I finally pull into his hospital's parking lot. The sedan turns at the corner, but doesn't enter. It waits across the street. Marcus meets me at the entrance. The moment he sees my face, he steps closer, lowering his voice. That car again? I nod. It's been following me all morning. He looks over my shoulder and sees the sedan. His jaw tightens. They're not bothering with subtlety. He walks me inside, stays nearby while I sit in the lobby, and only leaves when I assure him I'm calling Vivian next. His hand brushes mine before stepping away. You're not handling this alone, he murmurs. Not anymore. My chest tightens in a different way. Less fear, more something warm and unfamiliar. Then I head to Vivian's. Her office looks like the headquarters of a quiet, controlled storm. Glass walls, polished steel, precise movements. Vivian greets me with a steady expression, but the second she sees the screenshots, a spark ignites behind her eyes. This is harassment, she says. This is stalking. This is intimidation. We're responding aggressively. She lays out a plan like a general drawing battle lines, restraining orders, cease and desist letters, criminal complaints. She calls a security consultant who arrives 10 minutes later and reviews the photos of the sedan. Professional, he says. Not some amateur. He's reporting back to someone. My parents. Of course, it's them. Next, Vivian opens a thick binder she's been preparing since yesterday. This morning, she says, your parents filed an emergency petition with the court. My stomach drops. What kind of petition? They're trying to claim you are mentally unstable and unfit to control assets. The world tilts. What? I choke out. They're saying I'm... Vivian taps the page. Predictable tactic. They're attempting to build a narrative. I stare at the words on the page. My name next to phrases like delusional tendencies and emotional instability and concerns for her decision-making. A cold shiver runs down my spine. My entire life, I whisper, they said those things to me. Exactly, Vivian replies. They groomed you to believe it so they could weaponize it. Now my eyes burn. Every memory with them suddenly feels sharper, clearer, more sinister. Vivian places a hand over mine, firm but gentle. We will destroy this petition. I nod, even though my throat is tight. We go over documents, messages, evidence. Every lie they told, every threat they made. Vivian gathers everything into a binder labeled L, Carrington Abuse File. It's time you see your life clearly, she says. No more fog. Her confidence is a buoy in a sea of panic. The meeting ends with instructions. Stay in public places. Document everything. Avoid being alone at night. As I leave her office, the sky is darkening. The early winter sunset casting long shadows across the street. My breath fogs in the cold air. I pull my coat tighter around me. Halfway to my car, I see movement to my right. The gray sedan parked at the corner. Engine running. Lights off. I freeze. Panic skittering through my veins. Before fear can swallow me, a voice calls out. Lena. I jump, turning toward the sound. Marcus stands across the sidewalk. Coat half-zipped, keys in his hand. I thought I'd swing by and check, he says softly. You didn't answer my last text. The relief is so immediate and overwhelming, my knees nearly buckle. Marcus follows my gaze, sees the sedan, and steps closer, his expression darkening. That's him, I whisper. The one following me. Marcus doesn't hesitate. He pulls out his phone and snaps a photo. Then he moves in front of me, protective, shoulders rigid. You are not touching her, he says, not loud enough for the driver, but loud enough for me to hear, to feel safe. The sedan finally pulls away, melting into traffic like a ghost. I sag against my car door, heart hammering wildly. Marcus puts a steady hand on my shoulder. You need backup, and you have it. Whatever this is, you're not facing it alone. I swallow hard, fighting tears. Why, I whisper. Why are you doing this for me? He studies me with quiet intensity. Because you deserve someone in your corner, and because I care. The words break something open inside me. Something brittle, fragile, long abandoned. I nod, unable to speak. He gives my shoulder a gentle squeeze before stepping back. Go home, he says softly. Lock your doors. Text me when you're inside. If anything feels off, you call me immediately. I promise I will. But when I get back to my hotel room, there's a package at my door. No return address, no label, just a plain brown box. My stomach churns. I pick it up with 2 fingers like it might explode. Inside, there's no object, just a single sheet of paper. You can't hide. We'll get back what belongs to us. My hands tremble so hard I almost drop it. I text the photo to Vivian. Her response is immediate. He's escalating. We're filing for an emergency restraining order tomorrow morning. Lock your door. Do not open anything else. I sit on the edge of the bed, breathing in short, sharp bursts. The note crumpled in my fist. For the first time, I understand something terrifying. My parents aren't going to stop. But neither am I. Not anymore. The judge's gavel hits the bench with a sharp crack that echoes through the courtroom. And suddenly, every molecule of air feels too thick to breathe. I grip the edge of the table so tightly my fingers ache. Vivian stands beside me, calm and terrifying in her navy suit, her presence radiating the kind of controlled power my parents never imagined I'd have on my side. Across the aisle, my mother adjusts her pearl necklace with a trembling hand, while my father stares at me like I'm a stain he can scrub off the family name. They look smaller than I remember, desperate, cornered, and still somehow arrogant enough to think they can win. All parties are present, the judge says. His voice is clipped, like he's already annoyed. This is the emergency hearing concerning the petition filed by Richard and Elaine Carrington regarding the mental fitness of their daughter, Lena Carrington. My father sits straighter, smoothing his tie. My mother puts on her trembling lip, ready to weaponize tears. I brace myself. Their attorney, a thin, sharp-featured woman who looks like she eats broken rules for breakfast, steps forward first. Your Honor, we are here today out of deep concern for our daughter. She has displayed increasingly erratic behavior, made impulsive financial decisions, and, that's a lie, I whisper. But Vivian touches my arm lightly. Wait. And has recently gained access to funds set up by her grandfather while in an emotionally unstable condition, the attorney continues. We fear she is being manipulated by outside influences and is not mentally capable of managing such assets. My mother dabs at her eyes delicately. Fake. All of it. Vivian stands, her movements precise. Your Honor, we are prepared to respond to all allegations, including evidence of stalking, harassment, and financial manipulation committed by the petitioners. The judge's gaze sharpens. Proceed. Vivian begins with a stack of documents. First, medical reports from Mr. Henry Carrington's physicians confirming he was fully competent when he established the legacy trust for my client. She hands them to the bailiff. My parents stiffen. And next, Vivian continues, security footage from Cumberland National Trust from 9 years ago, showing the petitioners attempting to coerce an elderly man into signing over control of his estate. My father jerks upright. My mother gasps softly. Their attorney tries to object, but the judge silences her with a raised hand. The footage plays on the courtroom monitor. There's my father, face twisted with frustration, pointing at a stack of papers. My mother hovering behind him, her lips thin with anger. And my grandfather, calm but unyielding, refusing to sign anything. The courtroom is dead silent. Vivian continues. We also have email correspondence from the petitioners to various third parties, attempting to frame Mr. Carrington as mentally incompetent. These emails contain statements such as, and I quote, he's old. Who's going to believe him? My father's jaw clenches. My mother's face turns pale. And finally, Vivian says, pulling out a printed transcript. We have the letters Mr. Carrington wrote to my client, letters her parents intercepted and concealed. She reads one aloud. My grandfather's voice on paper feels like a hand on my heart. My sweet girl, I miss you. They won't let you visit. I am so sorry. Please remember I love you. I cover my mouth with my hand. The judge's expression softens almost imperceptibly. Then Vivian deals the blow that breaks everything open. There is also evidence that the petitioners hired a private investigator to follow my client, including footage of the same vehicle appearing outside her hotel and trailing her on multiple occasions. She gestures to the screen again as images flash. My own photos of the gray sedan. My father bursts forward suddenly, slamming his hands on the table. That is taken out of context. The judge slams his gavel. One more outburst and you will be removed. My father's chest heaves as he sinks back into his seat, eyes burning with fury. Your Honor, Vivian says, it is clear the petitioners are not concerned parents. They are individuals attempting to regain access to an estate they failed to seize from the rightful beneficiary. The opposing attorney stands, but even she looks rattled. Your Honor, we believe. You believe nothing with evidence to support it, the judge snaps, rubbing his forehead. He glances at the documents, then at me. His next words feel like oxygen. Petition denied. My breath rushes out in a shaky gasp. The judge continues, voice firmer now. Furthermore, due to the documented harassment, stalking, and attempted coercion, this court issues a temporary restraining order against Richard and Ella Carrington, effective immediately. My mother's face crumples. My father goes scarlet. And, the judge adds sharply, I will be recommending this case be reviewed by criminal investigators for potential charges. My parents both with their heads toward me, outrage written across their faces. Their attorney looks ready to sink through the floor. Vivian nods once, satisfied. Thank you, Your Honor. We exit the courtroom, and I lean against the wall outside, shaking. Relief and terror battle inside my chest. The threat is contained, but not dead. Marcus appears in the hallway like he was waiting for this moment. He steps toward me slowly, as if unsure whether he's allowed to touch me. I don't realize I'm crying until he brushes a tear from my cheek. You did it, he murmurs. You stood up to them. I feel like I'm going to collapse, I admit. You're allowed to, he says softly. Just not alone. I let out a trembling breath. They aren't going to stop. No, he agrees. But now they have consequences chasing them, and you have people standing between you and them. Vivian steps out, her heels clicking decisively. Lena, we're not finished. There's still a long process ahead. But today you won. And you're safe, for the moment. Safe? A word I haven't felt in years. Marcus takes my hand gently. Come on, let me walk you to your car. We step outside into the brittle winter air. The gray sedan is nowhere in sight today. Maybe finally, the law scared them back into whatever shadows they came from. But as I reach my car door, my phone buzzes again. A new message. No number, no name. Enjoy your freedom while it lasts. My blood runs cold. Marcus sees my expression and takes the phone from my hand. When he reads the message, his jaw tightens in a way that sends fear and comfort warring inside me. He looks up slowly. They're not done, he says. Neither am I think. Not anymore. He hands me back my phone. We'll tell Vivian. We'll file it. We'll fight everything they throw. I nod, swallowing hard. I survived the hearing. I survived the exposure of a decade of lies. And with every new threat, every new attempt to pull me back under their control, something inside me hardens. My parents started a war. But I'm finally learning how to fight. Snow was falling again. The morning everything finally shifted. I watched it from Marcus' kitchen window. The city, washed in white, quiet in a way that almost felt unreal after weeks of chaos. For the first time in what felt like forever, my shoulders weren't knotted in fear. My phone wasn't buzzing with threats. No dark cars idled outside. The world was still, but the stillness wasn't fragile anymore. It felt earned. Marcus moved around the kitchen behind me, barefoot, half awake, making coffee like he'd been doing it beside me for years. His presence no longer startled me. It settled me. Each small gesture, reaching past me for a mug, brushing a hand against my back, kissing the top of my head as he passed, felt like a quiet reminder that I wasn't alone. Not anymore. Vivian had emailed last night with the final update. The case was closed. The fraud investigation into my parents was complete, and charges, real serious charges, were moving forward. I wasn't required to testify. Their emails, messages, and the PI's confession were more than enough. My parents were no longer lurking shadows in my life. They were legal consequences waiting to happen, and I was free. A knock came at the door. Marcus looked up surprised. That'll be the security detail, he murmured. Vivian said they'd stop by this morning for once. I didn't tense. I didn't check the peephole 3 times. I didn't feel hunted. The security officer standing outside the door introduced himself, gave us the court's final documents, and left. No drama, no threat, just closure delivered in a manila envelope. I sat at the table, fingers trembling only slightly as I opened it. Permanent restraining order. Full control of my grandfather's estate. Official confirmation that I had been the victim, not the perpetrator, of manipulation. And one more thing, a letter from the court-appointed financial evaluator. I opened it and blinked. They had audited everything, the accounts, the recordings, the documents my grandfather left behind, and they'd discovered more investments, more assets, more property. My parents didn't even know existed because my grandfather had hidden them too well. I let out a strangled laugh. Marcus looked up. Good news. He left me more than we thought, I whispered. A lot more. He pulled out the chair next to me. Then maybe it's time you decide how to use it. I stared down at the letter and felt something I hadn't felt in years. An open horizon. A future that belonged to me. Not shaped by fear or obligation. Not dictated by someone else's cruelty. Mine. Later that afternoon, Vivian called with one last update. It's done, she said simply. They can't touch you again. I stepped out onto the apartment balcony as she spoke, listening to the hum of the city below, breathing in cold air that tasted like relief. When we ended the call, I stayed there a while, letting the wind tangle my hair, letting the reality of my new life sink in. Marcus joined me a moment later, hands tucked into his pockets. You okay? I nodded. I think for the first time I know what that feels like. He smiled the way he always did when he wanted to make sure I believed in myself. What's next, Lena? I turned to him, feeling warmth spread through my chest. I want a home, I said softly. A real one. Not a place to hide. A place to live, a place where I can breathe. He nodded slowly. Good. And I hesitated, searching his face. I want you there. If you want to be. His expression softened, gentle, steady, full of something that felt a lot like promise. I'm not going anywhere, he murmured. Wherever you go next, I'm right beside you. I didn't realize I was crying until he brushed a tear away with his thumb. Weeks later, when the last snow melted and the first signs of spring touched the edges of the city, we stood in front of a little brick house just outside town. A quiet street. A yard my grandfather would have loved. A porch where light spilled in the afternoons. Not a mansion, not a fortress. A beginning. A symbol of everything I'd built for myself. Freedom, safety, peace. Inside, we painted walls, unpacked boxes, and built a life. Marcus filled the kitchen with laughter and music. I filled the shelves with books and the windowsill with plants. The security system was state-of-the-art, not because I lived in fear, but because I finally valued myself enough to protect my future. And sometimes, when the sun slanted just right and the world felt particularly gentle, I could almost feel my grandfather in the house with me, watching over me the way he always wanted to. I visited his grave one morning in early summer. The air was warm, and the flowers I brought rustled softly in the breeze. You were right, I whispered about all of it. Thank you for believing in me before I ever learned to believe in myself. I laid the flowers down and rested my hand against the cool stone. I'm okay now, I said. I'm finally okay. As I walked back to my car, I felt lighter, stronger, whole. And when I got home, my home, Marcus was waiting on the porch, smiling the way someone smiles when they know they've found the place they're meant to stay. If you've made it this far, thank you for sharing this journey with me. This story, it's about finding your voice, even when everyone tries to silence it. Have you ever had a moment where you realized everything you believed about your life was a lie? What did you do next? I'd really love to hear your experiences in the comments below.